What if the more you try to be valued, the less people actually value you? Picture this. You give your time, your energy, your kindness, yet somehow you're still overlooked, taken for granted, quietly replaced. The common belief says, give more and you'll be loved more. But the deeper truth is unsettling. The more you abandon yourself, the more the world follows. In the teachings of Gautama Buddha, there is a hidden law. Attachment breeds suffering, but self-honor attracts alignment. Look at your own life. Are you respected or just tolerated? Why do people ignore you when you give your best, but respect you when you pull back? Because value isn't in effort, it's in how you see yourself. Your doorway to calm, clarity, and timeless Buddhist insight. In this video, you'll discover why people leave when you grow, how chasing destroys your worth, and a powerful bonus lesson at the end that changes everything. But only if you truly understand this. You teach people how to treat you. Why do some people receive respect without ever asking, while others keep explaining their worth, hoping someone will finally see it? Sit with this quietly. Every interaction you enter becomes an unspoken agreement, not spoken with words, but revealed through what you allow. And the truth is gentle, but sharp. You teach people how to treat you. There is a quiet law of life. The world does not guess your value, it reflects it. When you lower yourself to be accepted, you are not creating love, you are creating confusion. In the teachings of the awakened ones, suffering begins when we abandon our own center. When you forget your worth, you start negotiating for things that should have been freely given: respect, presence, care. And slowly, this no longer feels like love, it feels like exhaustion. Imagine a marketplace. If gold were priced like dust, people would walk over it without noticing, not because it has no value, but because its value was not protected. In the same way, when you ignore your own boundaries, you silently announce, "This is enough for me." And the world listens, not to your words, but to your standards. Pause here. Close your eyes for a moment. See yourself standing still, grounded, surrounded by a quiet boundary of light. There is no anger in this boundary, only clarity. Notice who approaches with respect and who hesitates, unable to cross what they once ignored. Some will fade away. And this may feel like loss, but look deeper. Are you losing people or illusions? Reflect honestly. Where have you accepted less than you deserve? Where did you stay silent just to keep someone close? And what silent message did that send about your worth? The answer may feel uncomfortable, but it is also the doorway to freedom. Here is the shift most people resist. When you begin to value yourself, you do not attract more people, you attract the right ones. Because not everyone is meant to meet you at your highest standard. Some connections survive only in the absence of your self-respect. So, what must you do? Begin with small, quiet discipline. Say no without explaining. Step back without guilt. Choose peace over approval. Each action becomes a teaching, not for others, but for your own mind. You are no longer asking to be valued. You are living as someone who already is. And slowly, something changes. You stop chasing, you stop proving, you stop shrinking. And in that stillness, the right people no longer need convincing. Remember this deeply. The day you truly value yourself is the day you stop begging for what was never meant to stay. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "I attract what aligns." 2. Growth reveals, it does not remove. Have you ever noticed? The moment you begin to respect yourself, certain people grow distant. They do not argue, they do not explain, they simply fade. And a quiet question arises within you. Why does growth feel like loss? Sit with this gently, because the answer will change how you see every ending. Growth does not remove people from your life. It reveals who was never aligned with you to begin with. When you lived in self-neglect, you were easier to hold, easier to predict. easier to stay around. But the moment you stand taller within yourself, your energy shifts. And that shift becomes a light, not a harsh light, but a clear one. And in that clarity, what once felt stable begins to feel heavy. There is a simple truth hidden in this. Not everyone loses you. Some simply lose access to the version of you they were comfortable with. And this realization can sting, because part of you still remembers how things used to feel, familiar, warm, known. But ask yourself honestly, was it truly peace, or just the absence of change? Imagine your life as rising water, slowly, steadily, without force. As the level rises, you begin to notice something. What is strong floats with you, what is fragile begins to drift away. There is no anger in this process, no blame, only exposure. The weak anchors break first, not because the water is cruel, but because they were never meant to hold you at your new depth. Pause here and look within. Are you mourning people, or the version of yourself they were attached to? The one who tolerated, who explained too much, who stayed even when it felt heavy. And now that you are changing, why does holding on to them feel like carrying weight instead of sharing presence? This is the turning point most people resist. They try to shrink back, to reconnect with what once felt safe. But growth does not move backward, and every attempt to return only deepens your inner conflict, because once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. So, what must you do? Allow the distance, not with bitterness, but with understanding. Do not chase those who feel uncomfortable with your clarity. Do not convince those who only understood your silence. Let your growth do what it is meant to do, reveal truth without force. And here is the deeper insight. What if their leaving is not rejection, but release? What if life is not taking people away from you, but freeing you from what could not rise with you? Remember this quietly. When you grow, you do not lose people. You lose what could not meet you where you are becoming. 3. Attachment whispers. You are not enough. Have you ever felt this quiet urgency, the need to hold someone closer, to make them stay, to not lose what feels important? And yet, the tighter you try, the more distant they become. Sit with this truth without judgment. Why does chasing push people away? Attachment speaks in a subtle voice. It does not shout, it whispers. Without this, you are not enough. And slowly, without realizing, your connection shifts from sharing to needing, from presence to pressure. In the path of awareness, this is where suffering begins, not because you love too much, but because you fear losing what you believe completes you. There is a quiet law here. What you chase begins to run, not out of cruelty, but because your energy becomes heavy. Need carries expectation, expectation carries tension, and tension suffocates what was once natural. What felt like connection now feels like weight, and the other person may not understand it, but they feel it. Imagine holding water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away, not because the water rejects you, but because it was never meant to be held that way. In the same way, when you try to control connection, you lose the very thing you were trying to keep. Pause here. Picture the person you are chasing. See them clearly. Now, gently release them into open space. No force, no resistance. Just let them be. Notice what happens within your chest. There is a strange lightness, isn't there? Almost unfamiliar, almost peaceful. Ask yourself honestly, what are you truly afraid of losing? The person or the feeling they give you? And is this connection rooted in love or in fear of being alone, unseen, incomplete? These questions are not meant to hurt you, they are meant to free you. Here is the shift that changes everything. When you stop chasing, you do not lose connection, you purify it. What is real will not need your pursuit. What is aligned will not require your exhaustion, and what leaves was never grounded in truth to begin with. So practice this quietly. Step back without closing your heart. Allow space without creating distance within yourself. Become whole in your own presence. Because the moment you no longer need someone to complete you, you finally meet them without fear. Remember this deeply. What you desperately chase will always feel distant, but what you calmly embody will naturally arrive and stay. 4. Silence is the highest form of self-respect. Have you noticed how quickly you begin to explain yourself the moment you feel misunderstood? Words rush forward, trying to fix the discomfort, trying to prove your intention, your worth, your truth. And yet, even after saying so much, something inside you still feels unseen. So pause here and ask gently, why do you feel the need to explain what should already be felt? 5. Over-explaining is not clarity. It is a quiet form of seeking permission. It is the mind hoping that if it says enough, the other person will finally understand, finally validate, finally stay. But look deeper. Are they truly listening? Or are you speaking into a space that has already decided not to hear you? This is where exhaustion begins, not in speaking, but in speaking where your truth is not received. There is a subtle wisdom in silence, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of self-respect. Those who value you do not need your explanation. They feel your intention without interrogation. They trust your presence without requiring proof. And those who constantly demand explanation are often asking you to shrink into something easier for them to accept. Imagine a mountain. It does not argue its height. It does not convince the sky of its existence. It simply stands, rooted, unmoved, certain, and because it stands, it is seen. In the same way, your truth does not become stronger through explanation. It becomes stronger through stillness, through the quiet decision to no longer chase understanding from those unwilling to offer it. Now picture a moment where you usually over-explain. Feel the familiar tension rising in your chest. And this time, choose differently. Stay calm, say less. Let your words be few but grounded. Notice what happens. At first it may feel uncomfortable, even vulnerable, but beneath that discomfort there is something new. Power, not loud, not aggressive, but deeply anchored. Reflect honestly, where are you over-explaining your truth? Who requires you to shrink so they can feel comfortable? And what would happen if you stopped trying to manage how others see you and simply honored how you see yourself? This is the turning point. When you say less, you begin to mean more. When you stop explaining, you start embodying. And in that embodiment, something shifts. Those who truly understand you come closer, and those who don't quietly fall away. Remember this with clarity. Your worth is not something to be explained. It is something to be lived, silently and without apology. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "I attract what aligns." 5. Self-love is the art of removal. Have you ever wondered why, even after trying to think positively, something still feels unsettled within you? You add more motivation, more effort, more patience, yet peace slips away the moment something disturbs you. So, pause here, honestly. What if self-love is not about adding more, but about removing what no longer belongs? Many misunderstand this path. They believe self-love means repeating kind words to themselves while continuing to tolerate what drains them. But deep within, your spirit already knows the truth. Peace is not found. It is protected. And protection requires clarity. It requires the courage to see what quietly disrupts your inner balance. In the wisdom of awareness, suffering often lingers, not because life is harsh, but because we allow what harms us to stay. We excuse it. We delay action. We tell ourselves, it's not that bad. But slowly, this tolerance becomes a weight, and that weight begins to shape your days, your energy, your sense of self. Imagine your life as a garden, not rushed, not chaotic, but alive and sensitive. You plant care, intention, presence. But alongside it, small weeds begin to grow. Habits, people, environments that steal your peace in quiet ways. And here is the truth most avoid. A garden does not grow by endlessly planting more flowers. It grows because the weeds are removed without hesitation. Pause here, look gently at your life. What is quietly stealing your peace? It may not be loud, it may not be obvious, but you feel it in the tension in your chest, in the heaviness you carry after certain conversations, in the fatigue that lingers without reason. Now, ask yourself, why have you tolerated it for so long? Is it fear of change or comfort in familiarity? This is the turning point. Self-love asks something difficult, but freeing. It asks you to let go. Not everything, just what dishonors your calm, just what repeatedly disturbs your clarity. And yes, this may feel uncomfortable at first, because removal creates space, and space feels unfamiliar when you are used to noise. But stay with it, because in that space, something begins to return to you, your energy, your focus, your quiet strength. You no longer feel scattered, you feel centered. And from that center, your life begins to change without force. So, practice this gently but firmly. Remove one thing that drains you, just one, and observe how your inner world responds. Remember this deeply. Self-love is not about holding on to everything. It is about having the strength to release what costs you, your peace. 6. Availability creates invisibility. Have you ever felt this quiet confusion? You give your time, your attention, your presence so freely, yet somehow you are still overlooked, not ignored completely, but not truly valued either. And a subtle question arises. Why does giving more seem to mean less? Look closely at your patterns. When you are always available, always ready, always saying yes, your presence becomes expected, not appreciated. It is no longer received as a gift, it is assumed as a constant. And what is constant, the mind begins to overlook, not out of disrespect, but out of habit. This is the silent shift most people never notice. There is a quiet principle here. What is always there is rarely honored deeply. Just like the sun, it shines every day, steady and powerful. Yet, it is the rare eclipse that makes people stop, look up, and feel awe. Your presence is no different. When it becomes endlessly accessible, it loses its sense of depth in the eyes of others. But understand this carefully. This is not about playing games or becoming distant out of ego. This is about respecting your own energy. When you are constantly available, you are not giving from fullness. You are often giving from habit, from fear of losing connection, from the need to be needed. And that need quietly lowers how your presence is received. Pause here. See yourself gently stepping back, not disappearing, just reclaiming your time. Notice how your energy begins to gather within you instead of leaking outward. Feel the shift. Your presence becomes intentional, not automatic. And slowly, something changes in how others respond. What was once taken for granted begins to be noticed again. Reflect honestly. Where are you too available? Who benefits from your lack of boundaries? And deeper still, what are you afraid might happen if you were not always there? These questions are not meant to create distance, but to bring clarity. This is the turning point. When you become less accessible, you are not losing connection. You are restoring balance. You are teaching others that your time is not endless and your presence is not casual. And those who truly value you will adjust, not withdraw. So begin quietly. Say no when needed. Delay your responses. Choose your presence with care. Not to be distant, but to be deliberate. Remember this clearly. When you stop being endlessly available, you don't become less. You become someone worth waiting for. 7. Your shadow holds your worth. There is a part of you you rarely allow anyone to see, not because it is weak, but because somewhere along the way you were taught it was too much, not enough, or simply unacceptable. And so you hid it. You softened it. You reshaped yourself to be easier to love. But pause here and ask, what did it cost you to abandon that part of yourself? In the quiet teachings of awareness, the shadow is not your enemy. It is the part of you that was left behind. And what is left behind does not disappear. It waits. It influences your choices, your fears, your reactions, quietly, from the background. What you hide controls you, not because it is powerful, but because it is unseen. Think of your inner world as a house. There is one room you keep locked. You avoid it, distract yourself from it, pretend it is not there. But inside that room is everything you were told not to be. Your anger, your sensitivity, your ambition, your voice. And hidden among these is something unexpected: strength, truth, unclaimed worth. Many people spend their lives trying to improve themselves without ever returning to this room. They chase confidence, peace, validation, but ignore the very parts that hold it. Because facing your shadow feels uncomfortable. It brings up old memories, old judgments, old pain. But understand this gently. The discomfort is not the danger. The avoidance is. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine walking toward that locked door within you. Your steps are slow but steady. You open it, not with force, but with willingness. And instead of turning away, you sit with what you see. No fixing, no judging, just presence. Notice how, slowly, fear begins to soften, and in its place, a quiet understanding begins to rise. Reflect honestly. What part of yourself do you hide? Who taught you it was not acceptable? And what if that very part is not your flaw, but your strength waiting to be reclaimed? This is the turning point. When you stop rejecting yourself, you stop needing the world to accept you. When you embrace your shadow, you become whole, not perfect, but real. And realness carries a power that cannot be imitated. So begin this work gently. Sit with what you have avoided. Listen to it. Understand it. Reclaim it. Because the more of yourself you bring back into the light, the less you will search for your worth outside. Remember this deeply. The parts of you that were once rejected are often the very places where your true power lives. 8. Stop performing. Start being. Have you ever felt this quiet exhaustion of always being on, saying the right things, reacting the right way, adjusting yourself so you are easier to accept? And yet, even when people stay, something inside you still feels unseen. So pause and ask, are they connected to you or to the version you perform? When you perform for acceptance, you slowly lose contact with your own truth. You begin to study reactions, measure words, shape your personality to fit expectations. And over time, this becomes automatic. You smile when you feel heavy. You agree when something feels off. You become someone who is liked, but not deeply known. And this creates a quiet loneliness that is hard to explain. There is a simple but difficult truth. The mask attracts, but the soul connects. People may be drawn to your performance, your perfection, your control, but they cannot truly meet you there. Because connection requires something real, something unguarded, something imperfect, something alive. Imagine wearing armor every day. It protects you. It keeps you safe from judgment, rejection, discomfort. But it also creates distance. No one can truly touch you through it. No one can feel your warmth, your depth, your presence. And slowly, protection turns into isolation. Now, pause. Picture yourself removing that mask you have worn for so long. Feel the fear rise first. The fear of being judged, misunderstood, even rejected. But stay with it. Beneath that fear, there is relief. A quiet, unfamiliar ease. You are no longer managing how you are seen. You are simply being. Reflect honestly. Where are you pretending just to be liked? Who in your life actually knows the real you, your thoughts, your struggles, your truth without filters? And if the answer feels empty, is it because no one cares, or because you have never truly shown them? This is the turning point. When you stop performing, you may lose certain connections. But look closely. Those connections were never built on truth. And what remains, or what comes after, will feel different, slower, deeper, more grounded. So begin gently. Speak a little more honestly. Hold back a little less. Let your presence be natural, not perfected. Not everyone will stay, but those who do will finally meet you, not your mask. Remember this clearly. You were not meant to be admired for a performance. You were meant to be felt for who you truly are. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "I attract what aligns." 9. Alignment creates effortless attraction. Have you ever felt the quiet tension of trying to make something happen, forcing a connection, pushing a path, chasing a result that refuses to settle? You give effort, intention, even patience, yet something resists. So pause here and ask, what if the struggle is not in what you are doing, but in who you are being? There is a deeper shift most people overlook. They try to attract better people, better opportunities, better outcomes, without first aligning their own inner world. But life does not respond to what you say you want. It reflects what you consistently are. And when there is a gap between the two, effort begins to feel heavy. In the quiet path of awareness, alignment means your thoughts, actions, and values move in the same direction. There is no inner conflict, no silent contradiction. You are not pretending, not chasing, not convincing. You are simply living in a way that matches what you seek. And in that state, something subtle begins to change. Imagine a magnet. It does not run after what it desires. It does not plead or force. It simply holds its nature. And what resonates comes closer without resistance. In the same way, when you become grounded, clear, and whole within yourself, the need to chase begins to dissolve. Not because you have everything, but because you are no longer operating from lack. Close your eyes for a moment. See yourself standing still, fully present. There is nothing missing in this moment. Nothing to prove, nothing to rush. Feel the steadiness within you. And now notice the kind of people, the kind of energy that begins to move toward this stillness. Not forced, not chased, just naturally drawn. Reflect honestly. What are you trying to force right now? A relationship? A result? A version of yourself that does not yet feel true? And deeper still, are you aligned with what you are asking for? Or are you hoping it will complete you? This is the turning point. When you stop chasing outcomes and start refining your inner state, life begins to respond differently. Not instantly, but consistently, because you are no longer seeking from emptiness, you are expressing from fullness. So shift your focus. Instead of asking, "How do I get this?" begin asking, "Who must I become to naturally meet this?" Let your actions reflect your values. Let your presence carry clarity. Let your life move from alignment, not urgency. Remember this deeply. When you become the energy you seek, you no longer have to search for it, because it begins to recognize you. 10. Respect begins where fear ends. Have you ever felt yourself staying silent? Not because you had nothing to say, but because you were afraid of what might happen if you spoke. Afraid of losing someone? Losing approval? Losing connection? And so you tolerate what feels heavy. You accept what feels wrong. So pause here and ask, what has this fear quietly cost you? There is a subtle truth most people avoid. The moment you fear losing something, it begins to control you. Your choices become smaller. Your voice becomes softer. Your boundaries begin to fade. And slowly, without realizing, you start accepting less than you deserve. Not because you lack worth, but because you fear the consequences of honoring it. Fear keeps you small. Truth sets you free. But truth requires courage, not loud, dramatic courage, but quiet, steady courage. The kind that says, even if this leaves, I will not abandon myself. And this is where respect begins. Not in how others treat you first, but in how firmly you stand with yourself when it feels uncomfortable. Imagine a bird inside a cage. The door is open. It has always been open. Yet the bird remains. Not because it cannot fly, but because the sky feels unfamiliar, uncertain, vast. In the same way, you may be holding on to situations that no longer feel right. Not because you must, but because stepping away feels unknown. Now pause. See that cage clearly. Feel the hesitation in your chest, the pull of safety, the fear of loss. And then imagine yourself stepping out, slowly, gently, no rush. Just one step beyond what has been holding you. Notice what happens. There is fear, yes. But there is also space, breath, possibility. Reflect honestly. What are you afraid to lose right now? A person, an image, a sense of control. And deeper still, what has that fear been costing you in your peace, your clarity, your self-respect? This is the turning point. When you release the fear of loss, you stop negotiating your value. You stop tolerating what drains you. You start choosing from truth, not from anxiety. And in that shift, something powerful begins to happen. Respect, both from within and from others, starts to rise naturally. So practice this quietly. Speak when it matters. Walk away when it is needed. Choose yourself, even when it feels hard, not from pride, but from alignment with your own worth. Remember this deeply. The moment you stop fearing what you might lose is the moment you finally stop losing yourself. Choose yourself again and again. How many times today did you quietly move away from yourself just to keep things comfortable? A small yes when you meant no. A silence when your truth wanted to speak. A compromise that felt heavy the moment you made it. So, pause here, gently. Where are you leaving yourself without even noticing? Self-worth is not one decision you make once and carry forever. It is a living practice, a quiet, repeated return. Because the world will always give you moments to forget yourself, through pressure, expectations, and the quiet need to be accepted. And each time, you stand at a crossroads. Not dramatic, but deeply personal. Each moment you choose yourself, you return home. Not to a place, but to a feeling. A grounded clarity where nothing needs to be proven. But this return needs awareness, because the pull to seek approval can feel so natural, so automatic, that you may not even question it. You simply follow it and slowly drift away from your own center. Imagine a compass in your hand. No matter how far you go, it quietly corrects your direction. It does not judge the distance. It does not rush you back. It simply points you back. In the same way, your inner voice is always guiding you. Not loudly, but steadily. The question is, are you listening? Now see yourself at a crossroads. A familiar moment appears, one where you usually choose comfort over truth. But this time, pause. Breathe. Feel what truly supports your peace. And then gently choose that path. It may feel unfamiliar, it may even feel uncomfortable, but beneath that, a quiet strength is starting to grow. Reflect honestly. Where are you leaving yourself behind each day? In conversations, in decisions, in how you treat your own time and energy. And deeper still, what would choosing yourself look like today in one simple, real action? This is the turning point. Not a big transformation, but a series of small, steady choices. Saying no without guilt. Resting without explaining. Speaking without overthinking. Each moment becomes a step back toward yourself. So stay with this practice, again and again. Even when you forget, return. Even when you drift, adjust gently, because self-worth is not something you achieve. It is something you live. Remember this quietly every time you choose your peace over approval. You are not losing connection. You are strengthening the most important one, the one you have with yourself. We would love to hear your thoughts. If you are not sure what to say, just type, "I attract what aligns." Bonus, fewer people, deeper connections. Have you ever looked around and felt surrounded, yet somehow alone? Conversations happen, messages flow, people come and go, but something within you stays untouched. So ask yourself honestly, are you seeking attention or are you seeking connection? When you begin to value yourself, something subtle shifts. You no longer want to be everywhere, with everyone, saying everything. The noise that once felt exciting now feels draining. And this can feel confusing at first because your world becomes quieter and smaller. But look deeper. Is it emptiness or is it clarity? There is a gentle truth here. A few real ones are better than a crowd of illusions. Not everyone who is present is connected. Not everyone who listens truly hears you. And not everyone who stays understands you. When your self-worth was uncertain, you accepted this. You filled your space with numbers, hoping it would feel deep, but it never really did. Imagine a single candle in the dark. It may be small, but its light is steady, warm, and real. Now imagine 1,000 flickers in daylight, barely visible and easily ignored. In the same way, one true connection holds more meaning, more peace, more truth than many shallow interactions. Now pause. See your life with fewer people, fewer voices, fewer distractions. At first, it may feel unfamiliar, even a little empty, but stay with it. Notice what begins to grow in that space. Deeper talks, honest presence, a quiet feeling of being understood without effort. This is not loss, this is refinement. Reflect gently. Who in your life truly sees you? Not just your surface, but your depth. Who listens without needing you to perform? And more importantly, are you ready to let go of what feels crowded but empty, so you can make space for what feels real? This is the turning point. When you stop chasing many, you begin to see the few who truly matter. And those few do not ask you to prove yourself. They meet you in stillness. They understand your silence. They respect your space. So allow your circle to become smaller without fear. Let it become intentional. Let it become real. Because in that simplicity, your peace grows deeper. Your energy becomes steady. Your life starts to feel aligned, not scattered. Remember this deeply. When you truly value yourself, you do not lose people. You see who was never really there and who quietly always was. Quick summary of principles. Self-worth sets your value. You teach others how to treat you through your standards and boundaries. Accepting less becomes a silent agreement for continued disrespect. Respect is not demanded. It is reflected from within. Raise your value inside, and others respond naturally. Growth reveals misalignment. As you grow, relationships built on your old self begin to break. People do not always leave. You simply outgrow who they knew. What once felt normal starts to feel heavy and limiting. Growth is not loss. It is clarity showing truth. Craving pushes connection away. Attachment creates a quiet sense of need and dependence. The more you chase, the more you show inner lack. True connection comes from wholeness, not desperation. Letting go makes space for real alignment. Stop explaining your worth. Over-explaining shows self-doubt and the need for approval. Those who value you understand without effort. Silence shows confidence and inner clarity. Your truth does not need constant explaining. Remove what disturbs your peace. Self-love means removing what drains you. Not everything deserves your time or presence. Peace grows when you stop allowing what harms you. Choosing yourself often means letting go without guilt. Scarcity builds respect. Always being available lowers how others see your value. Boundaries create space for respect and appreciation. Your time and energy are not meant to be always open. Being selective strengthens your worth in others' eyes. Reclaim your hidden self. Parts of you ignore hold strength and truth. Hiding them creates inner conflict. Facing them builds self-acceptance and confidence. Wholeness begins when nothing inside you is rejected. Drop the false identity. Living for approval disconnects you from who you are. People are drawn to realness, not performance. Pretending attracts shallow bonds. Being real invites deeper connections. Become, do not chase. Focus on becoming what you seek. Forcing results creates stress and resistance. Inner clarity attracts outer harmony. What you live consistently becomes your reality. Courage defines value. Fear keeps you stuck in what you should leave. Respect begins when you stop fearing loss. Choosing truth over comfort strengthens who you are. Courage is the base of self-respect. Choose yourself daily. Self-worth is built through steady, self-respecting choices. Every moment gives you a chance to align or leave yourself. Loyalty to your peace creates inner balance. Choosing yourself changes your life direction. Bonus: quality over quantity. Fewer people, but deeper and more real connections. Superficial relationships fade as your standards rise. Real connections are built on respect and presence. True value attracts depth, not crowds. In the end, this journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before you lowered your standards to be accepted. When you truly value yourself, life starts to adjust around that choice. Some people will leave, not because you failed, but because you finally stopped leaving yourself. And in that quiet space, something powerful appears: clarity, peace, and a deeper connection with your own soul. This is the essence of Zen. Not chasing, not forcing, but allowing life to align with your inner truth. When you realize nothing is missing, the whole world feels open to you. So stand strong in your worth. Let go without fear. Trust that what is meant for you will not ask you to shrink. If this message connected with you, take a moment to like and share this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. And do not forget to subscribe for more deep Buddhist insights on living a peaceful and aware life.